So I want to thank everybody for joining us again for Combustible Elements. We're here to talk about something very near and dear to me that I noticed over the years. And we're going to see if you notice the same thing. I'm joined by Ruben the Monarch, Aaron the Hitman. I'm Big Mel. Did you just flip and put on your GQ look? I saw that. That was smooth, yo. And we're going to talk about two of the worst words in our civilization for some reason. I'm wrong. Now, bear with me. People do not want to say I'm wrong. People feel like they're going to lose friends if they tell them they're wrong. People are going to feel like they lose everything if they say I'm wrong. Is it an ego thing? Is it in our society a negative thing? Because it does connect not just in the personal aspect, but in your jobs too. Political. When the last time you heard a politician say, I'm wrong? You may have heard them say, well, we didn't anticipate this, but you never heard them say, I'm wrong. So let's get to it. Guys, how do you feel about that? Those words, I'm wrong.
I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. It's just majority of the times I'm not wrong. So I'm not going to admit to something that I don't agree with. So, but in all honesty, like if I feel like that I'm wrong, like I would admit that I'm wrong. But if I don't feel like that I'm wrong, then I'm not going to say that I'm wrong just to make you feel better.
Ruben?
I'm gonna have to go with Aaron on this one. I feel like I'm perfectly okay with admitting my fault, even to my kids. And I know we probably weren't on that topic specifically, but you know.
Oh no, we're gonna touch that topic.
If I'm wrong, like I apologize to my kids. When they can prove me that I was wrong about something. That's where it also comes down to, being able to have that burden, that burden of proof. But if I am wrong, and I have been wrong on a lot of different occasions because I'm not always right, I'll admit, yeah, I was wrong. My bad. I apologize. So I'm okay with it admitting, wrongdoing if I happen to be wrong. But I'm not wrong a lot of times because I take my time before.
I knew you were going to go with that.
I'm wrong.
The moment you said I'm on page with Aaron, I knew you were going to say, I'm usually right, not I'm wrong. Like you just threw kids and did throw kids in there. That's what you really meant. But however, let's start with the kids. That's one of my biggest things with parents, one of my pet peeves. I have two pet peeves with parents in this day and age. For one, the ones that do discipline their kid. Well, I guess I can't say two because it's more than two. Never mind, forget that. But some of the things that are highlighted is when parents discipline their kids, but they discipline their kids for like everything they did all at once. You know what I mean? Like it's a trickle down effect. You pissed me off last month with this. You pissed me off with this. You pissed me off with that. I'm gonna get you all you guys for this, and it's all together. And I'm not gonna explain what you did wrong. So that's my first thing. My second thing with it is, as parents, I think your kids I'm gonna use your example, Ruben. I think your kids get bonus points. You tell them they wrong, and they go out and prove you wrong. So that meant they had to do some research. They had to garner some kind of knowledge to prove that they were right and you was wrong. Now, some parents can't accept that. They're always right. But as a parent, that should make you feel good that your kids is like, yo, people ain't just going to tell me the wrong thing, and I'm not going to do no research and look into it myself. So it speaks of individuality outside of what's being told. You know what I mean? Like they're not followers per se. They're putting themselves in a position to be leaders. So how do you guys feel? We know how Ruben feels about it. Aaron, how do you feel about being proven wrong by your kids or being told that you're wrong by your kids and they're backing it up?
It depends on the topic. Like it's not, I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind, my kids proving me wrong. It's also a way to go about proving that you're right. So I do try to instill in my kids not to brag. Although you can be happy that you know something, that you can be happy that you know something that an adult doesn't know. You can be happy that you won something, but to the point of bragging about it, I try to minimize that as much as possible. As long like we can do it in the house, you know, in a playful manner. But if you start to get to the extent where you feel like that you're better than somebody, you know, I try to minimize that situation. But I have no issue if you happen to prove me wrong about something that we may have talked about. But if it's something small, like, I don't know how many cookies are in the cookie jar, and I'm like, it's 12 cookies in a cookie jar. Like, that's not something I really care that much about. But then if they prove me wrong, like I just ate 2 cookies and it's still 13 cookies in the cookie jar, then we got to talk about how you know how many cookies are in there, because that means you touched all those cookies in there in order to count the cookies. Now we got to throw all the cookies out. Now it's your fault. Nobody getting cookies. So I'm still right because nobody's getting any cookies now. So again, it depends on what the topic is. It doesn't really, I don't get too, you know, caught up in that stuff. But I mean, if you prove me wrong about something, that's cool.
What the fuck did that just have to do with anything?
Listen,
you counted all the cookies. Couldn't they have just read the label and saw how many cookies were in the thing?
If cookies are in a cookie jar, that means they're taken out of the package and they're put inside of the jar.
Maybe they read the package before you put the whole package in the cookie jar.
That means that you
maybe they used the ingenuity and then asked you the question to prove that you didn't know and to prove that they were right and you was going to be wrong.
That sounds like
selling your
entrapment to me,
kids
man.
short.
It sounds like a serious case of entrapment, and you just setting these kids up to fail. But that's just me. That's my outside, you know, opinion of it. But
I was sitting here in shock. He said, "Now we got to throw away all the cookies because you touched them."
So you eating cookies that somebody else touched?
I mean, you know, dude, when you got kids, that's life.
Nah, that ain't life. That ain't life.
When you out here buying cookies from the store, you know somebody had to physically touch those cookies to put them in the bag, right?
Yeah, majority of the time. I mean, not majority of the time, but yeah.
So either way, you touching cookies, you eating cookies somebody touch.
Listen, we got homemade cookies over here though. We got homemade.
Somebody
cookies.
touched them to make them
you
at home, right? Or the
ingredients. You gotta touch it to put it in the pan, to put it in the oven, and then you gotta take it out the oven. You touching it again.
He just don't want nobody touch his damn cookie.
I don't.
That's what it is.
I don't want nobody touching my food, especially children.
Okay, so let's go to the next topic or the next point. And this is the financial portion of it. Like, people don't want to admit that they're wrong at their jobs. It was a time where you could come to your boss, whatever, and Ruben's a boss. Somebody could come to
I'm an owner.
He don't want to be the boss. He's the owner.
Listen,
okay. Well, let's
as a barber, you're self-employed.
Okay. Well, you're the owner, but they work for you.
They work for the business.
Yeah, they work for
themselves.
Okay.
Because again, everybody that I have here are subcontractors.
Okay, okay. We're not even gonna go into that. Let's do this.
But I can't get technical.
Ruben is a boss at one of his other.
That I am.
Okay, but I was trying not to say what it is without saying what it is.
Right.
So you're a boss in that other capacity. So
yes.
In that capacity, how do you feel when somebody come to you and say, "Well, Ruben, I made a mistake. I did this," even if it costs you money? Does your opinion lessen of that person, or does your opinion you respect that a little bit more?
But the thing is, you know, I respect it, but you know, it still costs me money at the end of the day. And I dealt with that a lot last year, specifically with decisions that I'm entrusting on somebody else to do, and you know they dropped the ball, so now it's a cost to that. So I mean, I'm glad that you own up to what I've already know, which is like, yeah, you messing up, but I would prefer if rather than you messing up, you know, you don't. Because every time you mess up on that aspect, it's a cost to it. You know, there's a price to pay for mistakes.
Okay, let's streamline this a little bit more. Say that person messed up and they weren't repetitively messing up. It sounds like you saying the person dropped the ball on repeated times
Right.
in this scenario. Let's say that person just messed up and it was like a mess up maybe like 5 months in. 5 months and it's the first and only mess up. Do you respect that person more? Does that change the scenario? Will you be like, it's a cost to it, period, and it's costing me money and I'm gonna be in your ass? Or does it be like, okay, well, anybody can make a mistake?
I mean, I feel like it depends on the situation. It depends on the gravity of the mess up. You know, like
Okay.
that there's a price for every mistake. You know, like for if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, you can always write off that mistake. You know what I mean? But then it's like you said, is it a repetitive mistake? Is it an honest mistake? Is it a mistake that was done based off, you know, stupidity level, or was it a mistake that was based on carelessness? You know, like carelessness and stupidity, they're kind of like kissing cousins. So like that could essentially be something that's a reasonable reason to fire someone. You know, whether you know you were careless and you deserve to be fired, or you just didn't know, you know, and you were just simply clueless on it, and in which case you probably should deserve to be fired. But as you're firing somebody for being clueless, you know, it also falls down into were they properly trained? You know, so say it again.
I said I was about to say that because that kind of fall back onto the boss, because we
right
the one delegating the task to the other person.
So you know, it slow to hire, fire quickly. Those are the mandates for a successful business, man. You take your time when you're hiring people. They go through the rigorous process of you trying to weed out the person that's just there, that just want to collect an easy paycheck. And then, you know, if you go through that rigorous process of hiring and then you still somehow messed up, or you still somehow hired the wrong person, you got to pull that trigger and fire them.
Okay, before I let Aaron answer this, because I know Aaron has something to say. You said slow to hire, quick to fire, right? Am I correct?
Absolutely.
That didn't sound like something you just came up on your own. That sounded like something that you heard in a business class or management class. Am I correct in assuming that?
That well, I mean, I guess you could call it a business class, management class, but that's something one of my mentors talks about, you know, and I like when me and him, you know, we have conversations, because it basically helps me figure out where in my journey I'm at, and you know what I should expect, essentially. Because a lot of times, you know, with social media, everybody showing their wins, man. You know, you go on the internet right now, you know, everybody winning. Everybody's winning. You know, no losses. It's all wins. And talking to him, it's like, listen, he's like, you know, I don't want to bore you with all of the, you know, the mishaps. And I'm like, I love hearing the mishaps. I love hearing the struggle. I love hearing that side, because in my feed, everybody is just all wins. I don't see like nobody's talking about these things that you're sharing with me right now. And it's reassuring when I hear them, because one, I go through them. Two, if I haven't gone through it yet, when I go through it, I already know, okay, well, he went through it on his business, on his side, that has nothing to do with my business. And so it's only right that if I'm going through the same thing, but now I at least get the knowledge from you on how you dealt with it. So I'm not going in there blind. I have somewhat of a blueprint, you know, to help me navigate through what I'm either gonna go through, or, you know, what I could possibly go through.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Aaron this question, and then I want him to respond to everything you just said. And I'm going to chime in on this one too, myself, from an employee standpoint. But from Aaron, from your standpoint, as an employee, did you ever feel that your job was threatened if you went in and said you made a mistake?
No, because if I ever made a mistake, it was never like fired level type of mistakes. So I never felt that way. Plus, I feel like that I'm a really good employee, and I do go above and beyond, you know, what they ask me of any job that I'm in. So I don't feel like that I have ever committed anything at my job where it was to the level that if I had to go admit that I did something wrong, that they was gonna be like, all right, well, you know, you fired. Plus the last job I was in a union, so it was pretty hard to fire people.
Well, I'm going to respond to that one in a second too. Okay, so how about I pose this other question before you get into what Ruben said? I don't want to make you forget your thoughts. Have you seen anybody else at any of these jobs you worked at where you told them they had to cop to some shit that they did and it led to them being fired, but you thought if they would have comped to it, it probably wouldn't have led to that?
Nah, nobody, like things that happened that might have been like get fired type level situations. Like people don't really own up to that because they know that they possibly gonna get fired. It's crazy, like just sitting back and watching the way people respond and act to things that they've done wrong, and they don't own up to it, but they're quick to point out the finger or like snitch on somebody else when they feel like that they did something wrong. But like, it's like you was in that situation a couple months ago, or you did this. Or like when I worked for the newspaper company, like letting the oil spill go or letting a busted pipe go, and somebody slipping and getting hurt and having to get taken to the hospital, and like knowing that the person on that shift could have taken care of it and they didn't, like that probably would have ended up in them getting suspended. But you know, they didn't own up to it. Like nobody was like, oh, well, that happened on my shift, so you know, that was my fault. Like that never happened.
Okay, so did you want to respond to anything that Ruben said? You see him writing stuff down, right? You know what that means.
I was just saying when Ruben was talking about like the guy making a mistake, you know, that kind of also falls on the person that delegated the job to him if the person does it like carelessly. Because of course, being a leader, being a boss, being somebody in a leader position, when of course you want to delegate jobs that somebody else should be able to do, but as you delegate those jobs, you want to make sure that you're giving it to a person that you feel like you can rely on. So if they constantly mess up, not saying Ruben did that, because I think Ruben is a lot smarter than that, but it is leaders out here that delegate jobs to people who aren't qualified to do the job. And then when they don't do it right, they look at them like, well, you know, this job was delegated to you. Why are you not doing the job right? And it's like, because you didn't properly train me or you didn't properly vet me to do the job, you just gave it to me. But Ruben clarified that, and you know, he said the quote, slow to hire, quick to fire. So slow to hire, you're vetting these people, no matter what type of business or job or leadership role that you're in. You're vetting the people that you have on your team to make sure that they're going to be able to do whatever job you may need to delegate to them.
You know, I love these conversations that we have, because when we have these conversations, for the people that don't know, we all individually take turns coming up with topics, right? And a lot of times the topics I come up with is off of these conversations right here, because it leads to other topics. It could lead to other shows. And you know how we do, we always branch off and talk about anything because everything collides in some form. But I mean, I'm writing stuff down to respond to what Aaron and Ruben just said, and it can lead to whole other topics. So we don't want to make this just about the work show, because this is the I'm wrong show. But I'm going to respond to a couple of things. And as they say all the time, I don't respond to a lot of stuff. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Okay. The reason I questioned you that on that, Ruben, is there's a couple of things that's going on, especially you're a small time business owner right now. Let's just typify you as a small business owner, right? You know, right. I expect big things from you, but you're a small business owner right now. Slow to hire, quick to fire. So there's the experience aspect of it too. When you hire somebody, a lot of times jobs want people to have some form of experience until now, quote unquote. So those people that's sitting on the couch that could go get a job and feel like they can't because of experience, there's a lot of jobs right now that take because they just need a body and they'll teach you, like it was years ago. So there's an experience portion of it. you can only get experience when you're doing that particular job, because you may have experience at another job, but it might be totally different from the job that you work in, the rules and the mindset and the theories on how things should be done. That should be considered in when you should fire some person. Not to say that Ruben hasn't considered that, but this is for all the other, someone's called starting people out now, small business owners that's listening to the show. If you have a good person and they're learning and they can do the job, and they get hit with situations that's unexpected, how do you expect them to know what to do? As Aaron said, it's about how you train. Aaron said something about no, let's go to years ago when you admitted when you were wrong. I always say I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I've probably been working a little bit longer than you guys. And most jobs, when I first started working out, when people came in and said they were wrong, they kept their job if they were good people. People didn't want to go just by the bottom line. People just didn't want to go by maximizing money. Now, even back then, depending on what you did, if you costing somebody a whole lot of money, you got to go. But if you've been doing your job, the mindset was, you also been saving me a lot of money because other people been messing up and you ain't been messing up. So they considered that in the equation. I personally just think in this day and age now, everything is dollars and cents to a degree, even for a good person when they say that, because once they experience a loss, anybody that gives them a loss is going to be a problem. So I wanted to touch on that. Union jobs. Yeah, it's hard to get fired from a union job. It's harder to get fired from a union job than somebody that's not in a union. But every job has rules, and every job has things that'll get you fired. And every job has, any union job is on par working with a bigger corporation. And a bigger corporation is always trying to fire people. And this goes back to the experience aspect. It's cheaper to bring somebody in because they can't bring in part-timers, most union jobs. So it's cheaper to bring somebody in on a lower salary and then get rid of that person that's at the top salary, because each contract kind of changes in a lot of scenarios. So that person coming in may not be able to get a personal choice insurance. They may be able to get something like an HMO. They might have less vacation time. It could be many aspects in the job that changes from contract to contract. And those people that come in are under a lower contract. So the people that's been there longer, there is no excuse when they make a mistake. As opposed to a newer person, we can save money. So you made the same mistake, we're gonna try to keep it. That's up to union management and stuff like that to try to figure that out and piece that together. Plus, on the bigger corporations, you have slow to hire, quick to fire, but then you also have government initiative. So if you're getting funded by the government, you might have to bring in more minorities. You might have to bring in more women. You know what I mean? Like, there's a factor in that. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing, but that says if you saying that I have to hire 7% or 20% more women, and that 20% may be like a good candidate that just happen to be male, they're going to be excluded from the situation. So all these things go into hiring. And with all these factors, I think that makes people not want to admit that they're wrong, because the situation is changing in our society today. But that's all I wanted to say on that. I want to go to the next topic, which people saying they're wrong in relationships. And I'll start with me since I'm running my mouth. I will admit when I'm wrong, but I may not admit when I'm wrong right to the near. I might wait and then say I'm wrong. Now, sometimes that's not the best thing, I understand, but sometimes that is the best thing, because sometimes cooler heads prevail. What do you think about people admitting they're wrong in relationships? This ego-driven, I can't be wrong when I'm in a relationship type shit that we go through now. We go through it now more than ever in my lifetime. I see it every day.
I mean, like Ruben said at the beginning of the show, like he thinks before he speaks. And that's the kind of person that I am. Like, I don't just dive headfirst into arguments. I don't always want to be right. So I listen before I speak. And I think of what I'm going to say before I actually say it. So is rare. And it's not saying that I'm never wrong, but it's rare that I'm wrong. But when I am wrong, I am able to admit that I'm wrong. And the reason why I'm able to admit that I'm wrong is because I take my time before I say things. A lot of people just come off the top of their head and say whatever they want to say, and then they're wrong the majority of the time, and then they never want to admit that they're wrong. So it's harder for them to say it because they're wrong so often. But if I do end up being wrong, I have no issue with admitting that I'm wrong. My issue is you feeling like that I'm wrong and feeling like that I need to admit that I'm wrong or apologize for something that you feel like I'm wrong for doing, and that's something that I won't do. So that's
Okay.
where a lot of issues may come in, or in past relationships, I'll say, have came in because I won't admit to something that's not true on my end.
Okay, Mr. Life Coach Extraordinaire. How about this? How about you to go through your whole progression, your thinking process, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're right. You just went through your whole progression and you took time, but you still could be wrong. And you said if you find out you're wrong later on, but then you threw in, but I'm usually not because I think. So I want to be clear about this to everybody listening. Just because somebody takes 5 minutes to think about something before they say it, don't mean they necessarily right.
Well,
It
like
just
wrong
means they
to
took
what?
more time thinking about it and they just more wrong.
But
They just
that means like,
identified
wrong
or
wrong
proved
to what?
themselves being wrong.
Wrong to what extent though? So like if we having a debate, like if
A 5 minute if they took 5 minutes, they're wrong to a 5 minute extent. That
listen,
5 minute process that made them come up with that wrong answer.
if we having a debate and my information is wrong, like I have no choice but to admit that my information is wrong. But if we having a conversation and something like the bill's not getting paid, and you know I gave you the money and the bill wasn't paid, like going back and forth about that, or just going back and forth about how to manage the kids or how to manage the household. Like I don't it depends on the topic as to what you admitting that you're wrong to,
I
because
agree with that. How you manage the house and how you manage the kids are two different topics. One may be more feasible, physical, as far as like seeing what's going on, and then the other one is opinion based. How you manage the kids might be opinion based between your life experiences. I'm gonna go to Ruben because I see how much time we have left, and I have another question on another where this is going to touch. But Ruben, how do you feel about I'm wrong in relationships?
I mean, a lot of times I'm wrong in my relationship, but a lot of times I'm right. So the tricky thing about being wrong in a relationship is even when you're right, you're still wrong. Because what happens a lot of times is, you know, the extent that you might go to prove that you were right, you might as well just say you just eat being wrong and live to fight another day. Now, this is a relationship advice. It's just what works for me.
I'm glad it's not relationship advice because it's some bad damn advice.
Because it's one of those things where, like, you know, you could very well be right. You could very well be right on how you think. You could very well be right on what you're saying. But, you know, if you want peace, you know, what are you willing to sacrifice for that peace? So that being wrong is the price, even when you're right, to set, you know, if you want peace.
Okay,
so that's a whole nother conversation, because why is it
that is a whole nother conversation. I'm gonna let him off the hook. I'm just gonna say this. If you're gonna keep on saying you're wrong for certain situations, then you're gonna be wrong for that situation through the duration of your relationship. Which that's where the problem coincides.
So,
where there's
so that's a tricky way of you know, you can say you're right. You can, admitting guilt is not the same as saying you're wrong. So, like, for instance, I can say, okay, you're right about something as a way to try to ease off the tension, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, you're saying you're taking the blame, or you're guilty. It's essentially pleading no contest in the court of law.
Damn near pleading the fifth. So
you're pleading no contest in a relationship.
because this is a whole nother topic and we will be talking about this. This is getting written down on a piece of paper. My next question, and then we're going to try to take like a minute apiece in that because I do want to get into our final book thought, who's to blame. But my next question is the politicians. Yo, what's up with none of them saying they wrong? Just because you come up with a program, you know it ain't working in a year. Why do you have to go through it for 4 years or even 8 years or a whole term, waste millions of dollars, don't fix a problem? How is it that I won't elect a politician if they don't at least admit that they made a mistake? Like, and they're not going to say they're wrong, but like admit that they made mistakes. How is it that we can't accept that?
What's that? The
quick.
Sixers trust the process, that little quote. See, you gotta trust the process of the politician, and they trust in their own process. And then when they realize that the process is not working, then you can't admit that you're wrong. You just is not enough people trust the process enough for it to work. So that's y'all fault for not trusting in y'all politicians to lead y'all down the path of darkness and destroy the whole United States. No, but I don't know. Like you can't admit that some politicians do admit that they're wrong, and then they still get reelected. It don't really matter because
I don't think you shouldn't get reelected because you admit you're wrong. I mean, everybody we're
wrong, and then you get back up on the podium and be like, "I'm gonna do better this time. Reelect me," and then they reelect them.
Well, I mean, if they can admit that they made a mistake, then shouldn't a person that made a mistake be given a chance to keep on going? Ruben, what's your response to the politicians not saying they wrong?
I mean, it's politics, man. It's not about right or wrong. It's about, what sounds good. It's all about soundbite at the end of the day. Results don't really matter because you got people that have been in power for, decades, and they still get, like you said, elected and reelected over and over again. So politics is not about right or wrong. So it's just about, who your connections and having the right soundbite and having the right look so you can continue the status quo.
Okay, now what you just said was a whole nother topic too. Politicians just keep getting reelected. When it comes to I'm wrong, that goes beyond when you have decades, 2 terms and 3 terms. Like either you're doing the job or you're not, no matter what you say, because we can see the results of it. So we're going to get into who's to blame. Who's to blame for people using I'm wrong as a last resort to get out of trouble in our society, but never willing to admit they're wrong before they get to a bad point? Because if you say you don't know something beforehand, I'm wrong, I made a mistake, you might be able to fix it because somebody might tell you what you should have did. So who's to blame for our society where I'm wrong is such a bad thing? And I guess we all got a minute because I'm looking at the time.
The parents are to blame because you need to teach your kids at a young age to admit your faults, to admit when you're wrong, and be able to move on from where you are. And that just creates better people to admit that they're wrong and have healthy conversations surrounding being wrong from time to time.
I should have just gave you 15 seconds. We knew where you were going. Go ahead, Ruben. I almost know where Ruben is going here.
I blame society, man. I blame society because at the end of the day, we have created this culture, man, where everybody got to be perfect. Everything got to be perfect. So that's why it's hard being wrong, because you want to give the impression that, you got it all together, and even when you don't. So I blame, Aaron blames the parents. I blame society.
I blame each individual. And the reason I blame each individual is you should actually learn. There's a portion where you learn things from your parents. There's a portion where you learn things from society, but there's also a portion where you learn things for your damn self. And experience should teach you, and you shouldn't make the same repetitive mistakes. It shouldn't be a big issue to tell even we're saying I'm wrong, but how about how many situations people don't want to tell them, their friends, their sisters, their family, what you did is just wrong. It's not benefiting you. It's not benefiting anybody else. You damn sure got to find somebody. If you tell somebody how they doing with their kids is wrong, you just lost a friend because they feel like you just shot them, even though they know they wrong. They may go to somebody else and say, I need help with what I'm doing. So I blame the individual. At some point, you have to learn in your life that we all make mistakes. Some are worse than others. You know what I mean? Some are ridiculously stupid. Some are impassionate. And some are just commonplace mistakes. You just made a mistake. you just can't be perfect all the time. Nobody's perfect all the time. We're all infallible. The only time that you always hear somebody say I'm wrong is when they stand before the judge and it's time to be sentenced. I made a mistake. I was wrong. I need your pity or your mercy. You know, now that's the one time I don't want to hear you wrong because you there now. You there for what you did. But those are the only times you hear I'm wrong, and people seem to accept those mistakes when they're being punished for it. Now they want to throw mercy. They want mercy for it when they should have just asked for help when they was making mistakes in the process and just admitted to themselves and admitted to others, I was wrong before I got to this point. So this is a topic we needed a hell of a lot more time. This is a topic that led to about five more topics. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for Combustible Elements. I'm Big Mel, Ruben the Monarch, Aaron the Hitman. We out here. Comment on it, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Have that conversation. You know, we can't fix anything unless we have these conversations. And we haven't been having these conversations. So let's have it. Let's not waste our time. You know, comment, come on the show. This man led something for you personally. Come on the show and talk about it. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us with Combustible Elements. I look forward to talking to you again. We out here. Peace out, people.